Captain Darren Wilson's fighter screamed through the void, alarms blaring as his ship plummeted towards an uncharted planet. The routine patrol near the edge of human space had turned into a fight for survival. Gritting his teeth, Darren wrestled with the controls. His craft shuddered, systems failing as it entered the atmosphere. The planet's surface rushed up to meet him, a vast expanse of sandy terrain. With a bone-jarring impact, the fighter slammed into the ground, skidding to a halt in a cloud of dust and debris. Darren's head swam as he regained consciousness. He ran a systems check, life support functional, but engines dead. Unclipping his harness, he grabbed his emergency pack and popped the cockpit. Harsh sunlight and hot, dry air assaulted his senses as he climbed out to survey his surroundings. The desolate landscape stretched to the horizon, broken only by rocky outcroppings. Darren's military training kicked in as he assessed his situation. Water and supplies were priority one. As he scanned the area, something caught his eye, a glint of metal half buried in the sand. Approaching cautiously, Darren realized it was another crashed ship. Smaller than his fighter, its design was like nothing he'd seen before. Alien. His pulse quickened as he circled the wreckage. A viewport revealed movement inside. Pushing aside thoughts of potential diplomatic consequences, Darren pried open the damaged hatch. Inside, he found a humanoid figure trapped beneath twisted metal. Female, if he had to guess, with iridescent skin and large dark eyes. She was clearly injured and dehydrated. Recognition dawned. This was a Ulian, member of a newly discovered species known for advanced technology and isolationist policies. What was she doing here? Darren pushed the questions aside and focused on freeing her from the wreckage. As he worked, the alien stirred. She fumbled with a device at her wrist, which crackled to life with a staticky voice. "Help! Scientist! Meteor shower!" The crude translation was barely intelligible, but Darren got the gist. She'd been collecting data when disaster struck. Finally extricating her from the ship, Darren supported the weakened Ullian as they made their way back to his fighter. Inside, he shared his water rations and introduced himself. "I'm Captain Darren Wilson. Can you understand me?" The alien nodded weakly, tapping her translation device. "I am Horace. Thank you for saving me, human." As Darren tended to Horace's injuries, his mind raced. They needed to pool resources, repair one of their ships, and find a way off this rock. But lurking beneath the practical concerns was a spark of excitement. This was first contact, real, person-to-person interaction with an alien species. Little did Darren know, high above the planet's surface, a cloaked Ullian warship had detected their encounter. Its commander viewed the human-Ullian interaction as a violation of strict non-interference protocols. As Darren and Horace began assessing their options for repair and rescue, the Ullian ship prepared to launch a strike team. Their mission? Extract Horace and eliminate the human. The stage was set for potential conflict between two species meeting on equal terms for the first time. And caught in the middle were a human pilot and Ullian scientist, forming an unlikely alliance on a hostile world, unaware of the danger descending from above. Darren and Horace huddled over the scattered components of their ships, sweat beading on their brows as they worked to combine the salvageable parts. The harsh sun beat down mercilessly, turning the air around them into a shimmering haze. "If we can integrate your power core with my transmitter array," Darren explained, gesturing to a tangle of wires, "we might just boost the signal enough to punch through the atmosphere." Horace nodded, her iridescent skin catching the light as she reached for a tool. "Agreed. The quantum stabilizer from my ship should amplify the output significantly." As they worked, a low rumble in the distance caught Darren's attention. He looked up, squinting at the horizon. Dark clouds roiled on the edge of visibility, growing larger by the second. "Sandstorm," he muttered, his military training kicking into high gear. "We need shelter, fast." Horace's eyes widened as she took in the approaching wall of sand. "Our ships won't withstand that." Darren was already moving, gathering loose panels and struts from the wreckage. "Help me construct a lean-to against that rock face," he called out, indicating a nearby outcropping. They worked with frantic efficiency, Darren's experience in hostile environments guiding their efforts. As the wind began to pick up, whipping sand against their exposed skin, They managed to erect a crude but sturdy shelter. Horace ducked inside, her fingers flying over her wrist device. "This may help," she said, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. A shimmering field of energy sprang to life around their shelter, deflecting the worst of the storm's fury. Darren's eyebrows shot up in amazement. "Impressive tech," he said, watching as the sand particles bounced harmlessly off the force field. As the storm raged outside, Darren and Horace huddled in their makeshift refuge, the close quarters forcing them into an unexpected intimacy. They spoke in low voices, sharing details of their lives and cultures. "I've always been fascinated by other species," Horace admitted, her large eyes reflecting the dim light. "That's why I became a scientist. My people, they fear the unknown, but I want to embrace it." Darren nodded, understanding all too well the pull of exploration. Humanity's been driven by that same curiosity. It's what brought us to the stars. As night fell and the storm finally abated, they emerged from their shelter to a transformed landscape. The dunes had shifted, creating new valleys and ridges in the moonlight, but it wasn't the altered terrain that caught their attention. All around them, the native flora had come to life in a dazzling display of bioluminescence. Delicate tendrils of light snaked across the ground, while floating spores drifted through the air like fireflies. The entire desert glowed with an otherworldly beauty. Horace gasped, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Fascinating. The storm must have triggered some kind of defensive mechanism in the local plant life." Darren found himself captivated not by the light show, but by the way it played across Horace's features, highlighting the alien yet strangely beautiful contours of her face. He quickly pushed the thought aside, refocusing on their predicament. As they resumed work on the transmitter, Darren's finely honed instincts began to prickle. Something felt off. His eyes scanned the illuminated landscape, catching a flicker of movement in the distance. "Horace," he whispered urgently, "keep working on the transmitter. We've got company." Without waiting for a response, Darren began gathering materials from their crash sites. He moved with purpose, setting up a series of crude but effective traps around the perimeter of their camp. Tripwires connected to flashbangs made from ship components, pit traps disguised by the shifting sands, and a network of pressurized coolant lines ready to release blinding sprays of vapor. As he worked, Darren caught glimpses of figures moving in the bioluminescent underbrush. They were being surrounded, methodically and efficiently. Military tactics. He counted at least 5 hostiles. Just as he finished his preparations, a voice rang out from the darkness. "Surrender the human and step away from the ship, Scientist Horace. This is your only warning." Darren's mind raced. Ulians, here to extract Horace and eliminate him. He crouched low, signaling for Horace to keep working on the transmitter. "Now," the voice commanded, and 5 heavily armed Ulian soldiers burst from cover, converging on the camp. Darren's traps sprang to life. A series of explosions lit up the night, disorienting the attackers. 2 soldiers stumbled into coolant sprays, their visors clouding instantly. Another fell into a concealed pit, crying out in surprise. Taking advantage of the chaos, Darren launched himself at the nearest soldier. His hand-to-hand combat training took over as he grappled with the larger, stronger Ulian. A quick strike to the throat, a sweep of the legs, and the soldier was down, his weapon skittering away in the sand. Darren rolled, narrowly avoiding a blast from another soldier's energy weapon. He came up behind the second Ulian, using the alien's own momentum to flip him over his shoulder. A sharp blow to the head left the soldier unconscious. Breathing heavily, Darren surveyed the scene. 3 soldiers down, 2 still active, and their leader, presumably, still out there. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder by the second. Darren looked up to see a ship breaking through the cloud cover, its searchlights sweeping the ground. "Darren," Horace called out, "the transmitter, it's working." As the human rescue ship descended, Darren realized the situation had just become far more complicated. The remaining Ulian soldiers regrouped, taking cover behind rock formations. Their leader, a battle-scarred veteran, emerged from the shadows. "This is Commander Zax of the Ulian Defense Force," he announced, his voice cold and authoritative. "Human vessel, you are in violation of restricted space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The human ship hovered above the scene, its engines kicking up swirls of glowing sand. A voice crackled over an external speaker. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Alliance. We're here in response to a distress call. Stand down and let's discuss this like reasonable beings." Darren and Horace exchanged glances, caught in the middle of a standoff that could easily escalate into an interspecies conflict. The next few moments would be crucial, not just for their own survival, but for the future of human-alien relations. Commander Zax raised his weapon, aiming it at the human ship. "This is your final warning. Leave now, or we will open fire." Captain Chen's voice came through again, tension evident in her tone. "I repeat, we are here on a rescue mission. Any aggressive action will be met with equal force." Darren's mind raced, searching for a way to defuse the situation before it spiraled out of control. He looked at Horace, seeing his own concern mirrored in her alien features. They had to find a way to bridge the gap between their peoples, and they had to do it fast. Darren opened his mouth to respond, but the sound of approaching footsteps cut him off. 4 heavily armed human marines emerged from the shadows, their weapons trained on the Ulian soldiers. Leading them was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern expression. "Sergeant Mike Hawkins, Earth Alliance Marines," he announced, his voice carrying authority. "Captain Wilson, are you all right?" Darren nodded, relief washing over him. "I'm fine, Sergeant, but we've got a situation here." As Hawkins and his team secured the area, Darren noticed Horace working feverishly on their makeshift transmitter. Her fingers flew over the device, making rapid adjustments. "Horace, what are you—" Darren began, but she cut him off with a raised hand. "Trust me," she said, her large eyes intense with concentration. Suddenly, Commander Zax's voice rang out. "Ulian forces, advance! Capture the scientist and eliminate the human!" The remaining Ulian soldiers surged forward, their weapons charging with an ominous hum. Darren tensed, ready for another fight, but Horace was quicker. She slammed her hand down on the modified transmitter. A wave of energy pulsed outward, invisible but potent. The advancing Ulians stumbled, their weapons sputtering and dying in their hands. Even their communication devices crackled with static. "Electromagnetic pulse," Horace explained, a hint of pride in her voice. "It won't last long, but it should give us an advantage." Darren didn't waste a moment. With the Ulians temporarily disarmed, he charged straight for Commander Zax. The Ulian leader, caught off guard by the sudden loss of his technology, barely had time to raise his fist before Darren was upon him. The two grappled fiercely, Zax's superior Ulian strength nearly overwhelming Darren. But years of hand-to-hand combat training had honed the human's skills to a razor's edge. He used Zax's momentum against him, redirecting the alien's powerful blows and finding openings to strike back. Their battle was a blur of motion, a dance of strikes and counters. Darren felt his muscles burn with exertion, tasting blood where a glancing blow had split his lip. But he pressed on, driven by the knowledge that the fate of 2 species might hinge on this moment. With a final, decisive move, Darren swept Zax's legs out from under him and pinned the Ulian commander to the ground. Zax struggled for a moment, then went limp, acknowledging his defeat. Breathing heavily, Darren looked up to see the human Marines efficiently rounding up the remaining Ulian soldiers. Sergeant Hawkins approached, eyebrows raised in impressed surprise. "Nice work, Captain," he said, offering Darren a hand up. "Though I'd love to know what the hell is going on here." Before Darren could respond, a new voice cut through the night air. "So would I, Sergeant." Captain Sarah Chen strode into view, her uniform crisp despite the harsh environment. Her sharp eyes took in the scene, the downed Ulian soldiers, the hybrid technology scattered about, and the strange alien woman standing protectively near Darren. "Captain Darren Wilson," Chen said, her tone clipped. "I believe you have some explaining to do." Darren straightened, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about his survival anymore. It was first contact, diplomacy in its rawest form. "Captain Chen," he began, choosing his words carefully, "what we have here is a complex situation that could have far-reaching consequences for human-alien relations." He launched into a concise explanation of the events that had transpired, His crash, the rescue of Horus, and the subsequent Ulian attack. Horus, using her improved translation device, corroborated his story, adding details about her scientific mission and her gratitude for Darren's help. Chen listened intently, her expression unreadable. When Darren finished, she turned to Horus. "And you, scientist, what do you make of all this?" Horus straightened, her iridescent skin shimmering in the starlight. "Captain, I believe this encounter, while unplanned, presents a unique opportunity. Our peoples have much to learn from each other." Chen nodded slowly, then turned to address her team. "Sergeant Hawkins, secure the Ulian prisoners. Treat them fairly, but keep them under guard. We're taking them aboard for now." As the Marines carried out her orders, Chen refocused on Darren and Horus. "You two, come with me. You need medical attention, and I need a full debriefing." As they prepared to board the human ship, Horus suddenly gripped Darren's arm. "Captain Wilson," she said, her voice low and urgent, I wish to request asylum with your people." Darren blinked in surprise. "Asylum? Are you sure?" Horus nodded firmly. "My experiences here have shown me how much our species can learn from each other. I want to continue my research, to bridge the gap between our cultures." Chen, overhearing the exchange, frowned. "That's a complicated request, scientist, one that could have serious political ramifications." "I understand," Horus replied, "but I believe it's a step worth taking." As they boarded the ship, Darren felt a mix of emotions: relief at their rescue, pride in how they'd handled the crisis, and a growing sense of anticipation for what was to come. The ship's engines roared to life, vibrating through the deck plates as they lifted off. But as they broke atmosphere, alarms suddenly blared throughout the vessel. "Captain," a crewman called out, "Ulian warship decloaking directly ahead." Chen's face hardened. "Raise shields, charge weapons, but hold fire." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing form of an Ulian battlecruiser. A transmission came through, the translator struggling to keep up with the rapid, angry Ulian speech. "Human vessel, you are in possession of Ulian citizens and classified technology. Return them immediately, or face the consequences of your aggression." Chen's lips pursed as she assessed the situation. The Ulian ship's weapons powered up, a clear threat. They were outgunned and in a precarious diplomatic position. Darren stepped forward, his mind racing. He looked at Horus, saw the fear and grit in her eyes, and knew what he had to do. "Captain," he said, turning to Chen, "I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our best shot at preventing an interstellar incident." Chen raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening, Captain Wilson." As Darren outlined his plan, the tension on the bridge ratcheted up. The Ulian warship loomed ever closer, its weapons primed and ready. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human-Ulian relations for generations to come. Darren took a deep breath, steadying himself as he faced Captain Chen. "We need to arrange a face-to-face meeting," he said firmly, "between you, the Ulian High Command representative, and myself, with Horus as our mediator." Chen's eyes narrowed, assessing the risk. "On their ship?" "No," Darren shook his head. "Neutral ground. There's an uninhabited planet nearby with a breathable atmosphere. We can set up a temporary base there for negotiations." Chen considered for a moment, then nodded. "It's bold, I'll give you that, but it might be our best shot at avoiding an interstellar incident." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Ulian ship." As Chen began discussions with the Ulian commander, Darren pulled Horus aside. "We need to prepare," he said urgently. "Gather every bit of data we can from both our crashed ships, sensor logs, damage reports, anything that proves this was all an accident." Horus nodded, her large eyes gleaming with willpower. "I'll compile a detailed account of my rescue as well. Your actions were honorable, Darren. The Ulians need to understand that." For the next few hours, the human ship buzzed with activity. Chen coordinated with Earth's diplomatic corps, receiving a crash course in first contact protocols. A small team was assembled, including Dr. Alara Voss, a xenobiologist, and Professor Jahan Kapoor, an expert in cross-cultural communication. Meanwhile, Darren and Horus worked tirelessly, piecing together their shared experiences into a coherent narrative. Horace's fingers flew over the alien interface of her salvaged equipment, extracting data that could prove crucial to their case. As they worked, Darren couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. From a chance encounter on a hostile planet to potentially shaping the future of human-alien relations. He glanced at Horace, noticing the way her iridescent skin shimmered under the ship's lights. There was something about her purpose, her brilliance, that stirred feelings he wasn't quite ready to confront. The alien ship's response came faster than expected. They agreed to the meeting, naming Ambassador Krell as their lead negotiator. Darren recognized the name. Krell was known for his hardline stance on alien isolationism. This wouldn't be easy. As the human ship descended towards the chosen planet, tension crackled through the air. Darren stood on the bridge, watching the barren landscape grow larger in the viewscreen. Rocky outcroppings and vast, wind-swept plains stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a fitting backdrop for this pivotal moment in interstellar diplomacy. The humans touched down first, quickly establishing a makeshift meeting area using portable equipment. Darren helped set up the translation devices, his hands steady despite the gravity of the situation. The alien ship arrived shortly after, its sleek design a stark contrast to the rugged human vessel. With a shimmer of advanced technology, an elaborate temporary structure materialized nearby. Clearly, the aliens wanted to make an impression. As the delegations approached each other, Darren felt the weight of history on his shoulders. He stood tall beside Captain Chen, acutely aware of the cultural chasm they were about to bridge. Ambassador Krell led the alien group, his imposing figure radiating authority. Beside him strode Security Chief Vex, whose piercing gaze seemed to analyze every human movement for potential threats. Horace stepped forward, her translator device at the ready. "Greetings," she began, her voice steady. "I am Scientist Horace, and I will be facilitating communication between our peoples." Krell's eyes narrowed at Horace. "You will be returned to us immediately," he stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. "These humans have kidnapped you and attempted to steal our technology. This is an act of war." Captain Chen stepped forward, her posture calm but resolute. "Ambassador Krell, I assure you that is not the case. We have evidence that proves otherwise." She nodded to Darren, who activated a holographic display. Images of the crash sites flickered to life, along with data streams showing the accidental nature of their encounter. "As you can see," Darren explained, "both our ships crashed due to a localized gravitational anomaly. My rescue of Scientist Horace was not an act of aggression, but one of compassion." Horace added her own testimony, describing Darren's actions in detail. As she spoke, Darren noticed a flicker of doubt cross Krell's face. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The negotiations continued, each side presenting their case. The humans emphasized their peaceful intentions, while the aliens voiced their concerns about the spread of their closely guarded knowledge. As the discussion seemed to reach an impasse, Darren saw an opening. "Ambassador Krell," he said, stepping forward, "I propose a compromise, a limited cultural exchange program where a small number of carefully vetted individuals from both our species could learn about each other in a controlled environment." The proposal hung in the air, met with stunned silence from both delegations. Krell's face darkened, clearly ready to dismiss the idea outright. But before he could speak, Horace interjected. "Ambassador, please consider this," she said, her voice passionate. "My time with the humans has shown me the immense potential for cooperation between our peoples. We have so much to learn from each other." As Horace spoke, Darren noticed Security Chief Vex's expression change. The alien's eyes darted between the humans, his posture shifting subtly. There was something calculating in his gaze that made Darren uneasy. Before anyone could respond to the proposal, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Small pebbles danced on the rocky surface as the tremors intensified. "Earthquake!" Darren shouted, his military training kicking in. "Everyone, we need to evacuate immediately." Chaos erupted as both delegations scrambled for safety. The makeshift structures groaned under the stress, threatening to collapse at any moment. Darren's mind raced, assessing the situation. "Captain Chen," he called out, "we need to coordinate with the aliens. their ship might have better scanning capabilities to find safe ground. Chen nodded, quickly relaying the suggestion to Ambassador Krell. To Darren's surprise, Krell agreed without hesitation. What followed was a frantic but coordinated effort between humans and Ulians. Darren found himself working alongside Security Chief Vex, using a combination of human ingenuity and Ulian technology to guide both groups to stable ground. As the dust settled and the quake subsided, Darren looked around at the mixed group of humans and Ulians. They were shaken, but alive, and more importantly, they had worked together. Ambassador Krell approached Darren, his expression unreadable. "Your quick thinking saved lives today, human," he said gruffly. Perhaps there is something to this idea of cooperation after all." Captain Chen seized the moment. "Ambassador, in light of what we've just experienced, I propose we consider a formal treaty. Non-aggression, scientific collaboration, a foundation for understanding between our peoples." Krell hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We will need to consult with our superiors, as I'm sure you will, but I am not opposed to further discussions." As both delegations prepared to return to their ships, Darren felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had taken the first steps towards something monumental. Horus approached him, her eyes shining with awe-inspiring excitement. "Darren, do you realize what we've done? This could change everything for both our species." Darren smiled, allowing himself a moment of hope. "We've still got a long way to go, Horus. But yeah, I think we've made a pretty good start." As they boarded the human ship, Darren couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was just getting started. The real challenges, navigating the political fallout, bridging vast cultural differences, and exploring the strange new feelings growing between him and Horus, were just beginning. Unknown to them, Security Chief Vex lingered behind, his eyes fixed on the departing human ship. His hand moved to a concealed device, transmitting data he had secretly gathered during the crisis. Information about Earth's military capabilities, their technology, their vulnerabilities. As Vex boarded the Ulian ship, his face was a mask of tenacity. Whatever happened next, he would ensure the Ulian High Command had every advantage in their dealings with these unpredictable humans. As the Ulian ship departed, Darren exhaled slowly, his mind still processing the events of the past few hours. The tremors that had shaken the planet's surface had also shaken the foundations of human-Ulian relations, opening a doorway to possibilities that had seemed unthinkable just days ago. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the ship's intercom. "All personnel, report to the briefing room immediately." Darren glanced at Horus, who nodded, her iridescent skin catching the light as they made their way through the corridors. The ship buzzed with activity, crew members hurrying to their stations, voices filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. In the briefing room, Chen stood at the head of the table, her posture rigid, but her eyes alight with purpose. "I've just received word from Earth Command," she began as soon as everyone was seated. "In light of recent events, they're proposing a cultural exchange program with the Ulians." A murmur rippled through the assembled crew. Darren leaned forward, his pulse quickening. This was exactly what they had hoped for, but he hadn't expected it to happen so quickly. Chen continued, "They want to establish a neutral space station as a hub for scientific and cultural exchange, and they want us to spearhead the project." All eyes turned to Darren and Horus. Chen's gaze settled on them. "Captain Wilson, given your experience with the Ulians, you've been chosen to lead the human contingent. Scientist Horus, your people have requested that you head the Ulian science team. Are you both prepared to accept these responsibilities?" Darren met Horus's eyes, seeing his own mix of anticipation and nervousness reflected there. He nodded, feeling the weight of the task ahead settling on his shoulders. "Yes, Captain, I'm ready." Horus's voice was steady as she replied, "I am honored to accept this role." The next few months passed in a whirlwind of activity. A previously unexplored star system was chosen as the site for the new station, which was christened Nexus. Darren found himself shuttling between Earth and the construction site, overseeing the human side of the project while liaising with Ulian representatives. As the station took shape, so did the team that would inhabit it. Scientists, engineers, and cultural experts from both species were carefully selected, each bringing unique skills and perspectives to the project. On the day Nexus officially came online, Darren stood in the central control room, watching as human and Ulian crew members worked side by side. The station hummed with energy, both literal and metaphorical, as systems came to life and new connections were forged. Horus appeared at his side, her presence a comforting constant in the midst of so much change. "It's remarkable, isn't it?" she said, her voice filled with wonder. "A year ago, our people barely knew of each other's existence. Now look at us." Darren nodded, allowing himself a moment of pride. "We've come a long way, but we've got a long road ahead of us, too." As if to underscore his point, a commotion broke out near one of the science stations. A human researcher and an Ulian engineer were engaged in a heated argument, their voices rising above the ambient noise of the control room. Darren moved quickly to intervene, Horus at his side. As they approached, he could hear the human's frustrated tone. "Your method is inefficient. If we just adjusted the power flow here—" The Ulian cut him off, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Our technology has been refined over centuries. You cannot simply—" "That's enough," Darren said firmly, stepping between them. "We're here to learn from each other, not prove who's right. Why don't you both walk me through your ideas?" As Darren worked to defuse the situation, he caught sight of a familiar face observing from the periphery. Security Chief Vex stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Darren had been surprised to learn that Vex had secured a position on Nexus, but he hoped the Ulian's presence might help bridge the gap between their peoples. Later that evening, as Darren reviewed the day's reports in his quarters, a notification chimed on his personal console. It was a message from Earth, marked urgent. As he read its contents, his brow furrowed with concern. The message detailed growing political tensions back home. A faction led by Senator Marcus Blackwood was gaining traction, pushing for increased military presence in the sector. They argued that the Ulians posed a potential threat to human security, citing rumors of advanced weapons technology. Darren leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He had known there would be opposition to the exchange program, but he hadn't anticipated how quickly it would escalate. He made a mental note to discuss the situation with Captain Chen in the morning. A soft chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, expecting it to be one of his staff with a late report. Instead, Horus entered, her large eyes filled with excitement. "Darren, I think we've had a breakthrough," she said, moving to his side and activating a holographic display. "Look at this." As Horus explained their findings, Darren's eyes widened. By combining human and Ulian propulsion technologies, they had potentially unlocked a method of faster-than-light travel that could revolutionize interstellar exploration. "This is incredible," Darren breathed, his earlier worries momentarily forgotten. "We need to prepare a full report for both our governments. This could change everything." As they worked late into the night, refining their data and preparing their presentation, neither Darren nor Horus noticed the small, almost invisible device hidden in the corner of the room. In his quarters, Security Chief Vex sat at his own console. His eyes narrowed as he intercepted and decrypted their communications. Vex's fingers flew over his controls, transmitting the data to a hidden faction within the Ulian government. As he worked, his face was set in unwavering determination. Whatever happened next, he would ensure that the interests of his people were protected. On Nexus, oblivious to the machinations unfolding around them, Darren and Horus continued their work. As the station rotated slowly in space, the gas giant it orbited cast a soft, ethereal light through the viewport. It illuminated the two figures hunched over their consoles, their differences forgotten as they worked towards a shared goal, a goal that would soon shake the foundations of both their worlds. Societies. Their eyes met, sharing a moment of silent understanding before they returned to their work. Weeks later, Darren stood on the observation deck of Nexus, watching as the station's massive engines powered up. The successful development of the new propulsion technology had led to an ambitious plan, relocating Nexus to a distant star system, pushing the boundaries of human and Ulian exploration. As the station began its journey, Darren felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The relocation represented a new chapter in their joint venture, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were headed into uncharted territory in more ways than one. Days passed as Nexus traveled through the vastness of space. When they finally arrived at their destination, a flurry of activity erupted in the control room. Darren rushed in, finding Horace already bent over a console, her fingers flying across the controls. "Darren, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement. "Our long-range scanners have picked up something unexpected." He leaned in, studying the readouts. "An uncharted planet? But these readings, are those signs of civilization?" Horace nodded, her large eyes wide. "Advanced civilization, but there's no response to our hails. It's as if it's abandoned," Darren finished. He straightened, his mind racing. "We need to investigate. I'll talk to Captain Chen about organizing an expedition." Within hours, a joint human-Ullian team was assembled. As they boarded the shuttle, Darren couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. Humans and Ullians working side by side, united in their curiosity and drive to explore. The descent to the planet's surface was tense, the shuttle bucking against unfamiliar atmospheric conditions. As they landed, Darren's breath caught in his throat. Before them stood the unmistakable remnants of an alien city, its architecture unlike anything he had ever seen. "Incredible," Horace whispered beside him. "The alloys used in these structures. I've never encountered anything like them." They moved cautiously through the abandoned streets, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. It was Darren who first spotted the entrance to what appeared to be some sort of research facility. Inside, they found a treasure trove of alien technology. Data crystals lined the walls, and strange artifacts sat on workstations, their purpose a mystery. As the team carefully collected samples and began preliminary scans, Darren couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. "Horace," he called softly, "does any of this look familiar to you, even remotely?" She shook her head, her skin shimmering with a mix of excitement and concern. "No, this technology is far beyond anything in Ullian records. I suspect it's the same for humans?" Darren nodded, his frown deepening. "Which begs the question, what happened to the civilization that built all this?" Their return to Nexus was met with a flurry of activity. Scientists from both species eagerly began studying the artifacts and data crystals, working around the clock to decipher their secrets. It was 3 days later when Horace burst into Darren's quarters, her face pale. "We've made a breakthrough in translating the data," she said, her voice shaking. "Darren, it's a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems." The implications hit Darren like a physical blow. He sank into his chair, his pupils dilating. "We need to inform Captain Chen immediately. This changes everything." As news of the discovery spread, tensions on Nexus began to rise. Debates erupted in the common areas, with some arguing for the weaponization of the technology, while others advocated for its immediate destruction. Darren found himself caught in the middle, trying to maintain order while grappling with his own conflicted feelings. The potential for protecting their species was tempting, but the destructive power of such a weapon was terrifying. In the midst of this turmoil, Darren noticed something odd. A group of new Ullian exchange participants had arrived on Nexus, but their behavior seemed off. They asked too many questions about security protocols, showed an unusual interest in the research labs. Trusting his instincts, Darren discreetly approached Captain Chen. "I think we may have a security breach," he said in a low voice. "These new arrivals, something's not right." Chen's eyes narrowed. "Implement heightened security measures, but keep it quiet. We don't want to tip them off if you're right." As Darren worked to tighten security, Horace continued her research on the alien data crystals. Her discoveries were both fascinating and terrifying. "The weapon's potential is even greater than we initially thought," she told Darren during a private meeting. "But there are warnings here too, about its catastrophic effects. Whoever created this was afraid of it." Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden blare of alarms. Darren's comm unit crackled to life with a security alert. The suspicious new arrivals were making a move on the research lab. Darren sprinted through the corridors, assembling a mixed human-Ullian security team as he went. They arrived at the lab to find the infiltrators already inside, attempting to seize the artifacts. "Stand down!" Darren shouted, his non-lethal weapon raised. You're in violation of Nexus security protocols. The lead infiltrator, an Ulian with unusually dark skin, snarled in response. You have no idea what you're dealing with, human. This technology belongs to the Ulian people. The confrontation quickly escalated into a firefight. Energy pulses from non-lethal weapons crisscrossed the lab as both sides took cover behind equipment and workstations. Darren's military training kicked in, and he found himself coordinating the defense with a mix of human and Ulian officers. In the chaos, a stray shot struck the containment field, holding the alien artifacts. There was a blinding flash of light, and suddenly the lab was plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in an eerie red glow. As Darren's eyes adjusted, he realized with horror that one of the data crystals was missing. He caught a glimpse of movement at the lab's entrance. One of the infiltrators was escaping with the stolen crystal. "Secure the lab," Darren ordered, then took off in pursuit. He chased the infiltrator through Nexus's winding corridors, but arrived at the docking bay just in time to see a small shuttle detach from the station. Breathing heavily, Darren watched the shuttle disappear into the darkness of space. The weight of what had just happened settled over him like a heavy blanket. They had lost control of information that could potentially destroy worlds. As he made his way back to the lab, Darren's mind raced. They needed to recover that data crystal before it fell into the wrong hands. But more than that, they needed to find a way to convince both human and Ulian authorities of the danger it posed. He found Horace in the lab, helping to treat minor injuries from the firefight. Their eyes met, and he saw his own mix of commitment and fear reflected in her gaze. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The future of both their species might depend on it. Darren's comm unit crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "Commander, we have a situation." Captain Chen's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Report to the main control room immediately." As Darren hurried through Nexus's corridors, he noticed an unusual flicker in the station's lighting. Reaching the control room, he found it abuzz with frantic activity. Horace was already there, her skin shimmering with an agitated pattern. "What's going on?" Darren asked, approaching Chen. The captain gestured to the main view screen, which displayed a massive eruption on the surface of the system's star. "We're experiencing a solar flare of unprecedented magnitude. It's causing widespread communication disruptions across the station." Horace chimed in, her voice tight with concern. "We've lost all contact with Earth and Ulia. We're effectively cut off." Darren's mind raced, immediately grasping the implications. Their plan to create and distribute false weapon schematics would have to wait. This isolation created a dangerous window of opportunity for those with ulterior motives. No sooner had this thought crossed his mind than alarms began blaring throughout the station. A security officer's voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, we have reports of unrest in the Ulian sector. It appears to be organized." Darren and Horace exchanged a knowing glance. "Vex," they said in unison. "That's not all," Chen added grimly. "We've detected unauthorized access to multiple airlocks. Someone's boarding the station." Darren's tactical training kicked in. "We're dealing with at least 2 separate threats. We need to split up." He turned to Horace. "Can you secure the artifacts? I'll handle Vex and his people." Horace nodded, her large eyes filled with drive. "Be careful, Darren. Vex is cunning." As Horace gathered a team to protect the alien technology, Darren assembled a mixed group of loyal humans and Ulians. They moved swiftly through the station, the sound of distant energy weapon discharges growing louder. Rounding a corner, they encountered their first skirmish. A group of Vex's supporters had taken control of a junction, using overturned furniture as makeshift barricades. Energy pulses flew through the air as Darren's team took cover. "We need to outflank them," Darren shouted over the din. He noticed a maintenance hatch nearby and had an idea. "Jax," he called to an Ulian engineer, "can you reroute coolant through these conduits?" Jax's eyes lit up with understanding. Working quickly, he accessed a nearby control panel. Moments later, a rush of frigid vapor burst from the walls, creating a dense fog that obscured their opponent's vision. Darren led his team through the mist, catching Vex's supporters off guard. They subdued the rebels swiftly, with minimal casualties on either side. As they secured the junction, Darren's comm crackled. Commander, Horace's voice came through, breathless and urgent. We have a problem. There's another team after the artifacts. They're human, but they're not ours. Darren's heart sank. The situation had just become exponentially more complicated. Hold them off as long as you can. We're on our way. Meanwhile, Horace and her team raced through Nexus's winding corridors, the precious alien artifacts secured in specially designed containers. She could hear the footsteps of their pursuers echoing behind them. In here, she hissed, ushering her team into a research lab. As the door slid shut, Horace's mind worked furiously. She grabbed a nearby scanner and began modifying it, her fingers flying over the controls. What are you doing? Asked Sarah, a human scientist on her team. Masking the energy signature of the crystals, Horace explained. It should make them harder to track. Just as she finished, the lab door burst open. A team of black-clad humans stormed in, led by a scarred man with cold eyes. Commander Ajax, he introduced himself, his voice like steel. Hand over the artifacts, and no one needs to get hurt. Horace stood her ground, her skin rippling with defiance. These don't belong to you, or to any single species. They're too dangerous. Ajax's eyes narrowed. You don't understand what's at stake here. This is about Earth security. Before Horace could respond, the room erupted into chaos. Vex and his Ulian extremists had caught up, and now all three factions converged on the lab in a furious battle. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with the acrid smell of ozone. Horace and her team took cover behind workstations, desperately trying to protect the artifacts while caught in the crossfire. Suddenly, a stray shot struck a power conduit. The resulting explosion sent a shockwave through the station, and the lights flickered ominously. In the main control room, warning klaxons blared. Captain Chen's face paled as he read the incoming data. The main power core is destabilizing. We're losing orbit. Darren burst into the lab, assessing the situation in an instant. Everyone, stand down, he shouted, his voice cutting through the din. The station is in critical condition. If we don't work together, we'll all die here. The gravity of the situation sank in, and the fighting gradually ceased. Darren quickly outlined a plan to stabilize the station, but it required cooperation from all sides. Ajax, we need your team's expertise to reroute power, Darren said, then turned to Vex. And we'll need Ulian technology to reinforce our shields against the gas giant's atmosphere. Both men hesitated, years of mistrust and rivalry evident in their eyes. But self-preservation won out, and they grudgingly agreed. As the makeshift alliance raced to save Nexus, Horace made a startling discovery. The alien artifacts, exposed to the intense radiation from the solar flare, began to glow with an inner light. New data streamed across her pad, and her eyes widened in amazement. Darren, she called out, her voice filled with awe. These aren't weapons. They're an energy source, one powerful enough to sustain entire civilizations. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. The potential for cooperation, rather than conflict, suddenly seemed within reach. But there was no time to fully process this information. Nexus shuddered, its outer hull groaning under the increasing atmospheric pressure of the gas giant below. Darren, Horace, and their unlikely allies worked feverishly, their combined knowledge and skills put to the ultimate test. As they raced against time, the fate of not just Nexus, but of human-Ulian relations and the secrets of an ancient alien civilization hung in the balance. The station's descent continued, the gas giant's swirling storms growing ever larger in the viewports growing ever larger in the observation deck. Suddenly, a series of loud clanks echoed through the station, followed by a noticeable shift in Nexus's trajectory. The makeshift alliance had succeeded in stabilizing the station's orbit, pulling it back from the brink of destruction. As the immediate danger passed, the tension in the lab remained palpable. Ajax's team stood with weapons at the ready, while Vex and his Ulian supporters eyed the artifacts with barely concealed desire. Darren positioned himself between the factions, acutely aware of how quickly their temporary cooperation could unravel. "We need to secure these artifacts," Darren said, his voice steady but firm. "Until we fully understand their capabilities, they're a risk to everyone on this station." Ajax stepped forward, his scarred face set in a scowl. "These belong to Earth now. We'll take them from here." "I think not," Vex interjected, his skin flickering with agitation. "The Ulian people have as much claim to this technology as humans do." Horus moved to Darren's side, her large eyes scanning the room. "Neither of you understand the true nature of what we've discovered," she said. "These aren't weapons. They're an energy source unlike anything we've ever seen." The revelation sent a ripple of murmurs through the room. Ajax's eyes narrowed with suspicion, while Vex's expression shifted to one of intense curiosity. Before anyone could respond, Captain Chen's voice crackled over the station-wide comm system. "Attention all personnel. We have multiple incoming vessels. Repeat, multiple vessels approaching Nexus." Darren exchanged a glance with Horus. They both knew this complicated an already volatile situation. "Everyone stand down," Darren ordered. "We need to present a united front to whoever's out there." Reluctantly, weapons were lowered. Darren turned to Horus. "We need to move these artifacts somewhere secure, somewhere only we know about." Horus nodded, her skin shimmering with a pattern Darren recognized as perseverance. "I know just the place." As they coordinated the covert relocation of the alien technology, Darren's mind raced through the implications of their discovery. An energy source this powerful could revolutionize both human and Ulian societies, but in the wrong hands, it could also spark a devastating conflict. Once the artifacts were safely hidden, Darren made his way to the command center. The main view screen displayed a fleet of Earth vessels, led by a familiar ship, Captain Sarah Chen's. "They're hailing us," a communications officer reported. Darren took a deep breath. "Put them through." Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen, her expression a mix of concern and impossibly strong anger. "Commander Walker, would you care to explain why Nexus is suddenly orbiting a gas giant in an entirely different system, and why we've been unable to make contact for the past 72 hours? Darren felt the weight of every eye in the command center on him. He chose his words carefully. "Captain, we experienced a severe solar event that forced an emergency relocation. Our communications were knocked out in the process." Chen's eyes narrowed. "And I suppose this solar event is also responsible for the unauthorized shuttle that fled Nexus shortly before you went dark?" Darren's mind raced. He needed to buy time without revealing the truth about the artifacts. "Captain, I assure you there's an explanation for everything, but given the sensitive nature of our work here, I'd prefer to brief you in person." After a tense moment, Chen nodded. "Very well. Prepare a docking bay. I'll be coming aboard with a security detail." As the transmission ended, Darren turned to find Horus entering the command center. Her expression told him she'd overheard the conversation. "We need a plan," she said quietly. Darren nodded. "We do, and we need to move fast." Over the next hour, as they prepared for Chen's arrival, Darren and Horus worked furiously to develop a strategy. They agreed that complete transparency about the artifacts was too risky, but outright deception could backfire spectacularly. "What if we focus on the potential for cooperation?" Horus suggested. "The near disaster brought humans and aliens together. We could build on that." Darren considered this. "It's a start, but we need something concrete to show them." As they brainstormed, a junior science officer approached them hesitantly. "Commander, Dr. Horus, I couldn't help overhearing. There's something you should see." The officer led them to a console displaying data from the alien artifacts. "We've been analyzing the energy readings, and well, look at this." Darren and Horus leaned in, their eyes widening as they absorbed the information. The artifacts seemed to be reacting to a specific type of radiation, one that was abundant in the atmosphere of the gas giant they now orbited. "This could be the key," Darren said, excitement building in his voice. "A joint mission to test the technology. It's risky, but it could demonstrate the benefits of our alliance." Horus nodded, her skin glowing with enthusiasm. "We'd need to modify a shuttle to withstand the atmospheric conditions, but between human and Ulian expertise, it's possible." Their planning was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Chen and her security team. Darren steeled himself for what promised to be a challenging conversation. As Chen stepped into the command center, Her eyes swept the room, taking in the mix of human and Ulian personnel working side by side. "I hope you're ready to give me some answers, Commander," she said. Darren nodded. "Captain, what I'm about to tell you will sound incredible, but I assure you, it's all true." He began to explain the events of the past few days, carefully omitting any mention of the artifact's original purpose or their current location. Instead, he focused on the cooperation between humans and Ulians during the crisis, and the potential breakthrough they discovered. Chen listened with a mixture of skepticism and growing interest. When Darren proposed the joint mission to test the alien technology in the gas giant's atmosphere, her eyebrows rose. "You're telling me you want to take an experimental shuttle into one of the most inhospitable environments known to either of our species? To test technology we barely understand?" Chen asked. "That's correct," Darren replied, meeting her gaze steadily. Chen was silent for a long moment. Then, to Darren's surprise, a small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Well, Commander, it seems you've been busy. This is either the most brilliant or the most insane plan I've ever heard." Before she could say more, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A security officer's voice cut through the noise. "Multiple unauthorized launches detected. Ulian shuttles are departing Nexus." Simultaneously, another officer shouted, "Captain, we're picking up new contacts on long-range sensors. A fleet of Earth ships, heavily armed." Darren and Horace exchanged alarmed glances. The situation was spiraling out of control faster than they'd anticipated. Chen's face hardened. "Walker, you've got about 10 seconds to convince me not to place this entire station under lockdown." As Darren opened his mouth to respond, Horace stepped forward. "Captain," she said, her voice steady, "what happens in the next few hours will determine the future of both our species. We can either embrace this opportunity for cooperation, or we can let fear and mistrust drive us apart." Chen looked between Darren and Horace, her expression unreadable. The fate of Nexus and potentially the future of human-Ulian relations hung in the balance. "All right," Chen said finally. "You've got one chance to make this work. But if anything goes sideways, I'm taking control of this station. Is that clear?" Darren nodded, relief washing over him. "Crystal clear, Captain. Thank you." As Chen began issuing orders to her fleet, Darren turned to Horace. "We need to get that shuttle ready, fast. And we need a team we can trust absolutely." Horace's skin shimmered with grit. "I know just the people. Let's go." They hurried out of the command center, acutely aware that time was not on their side. The modified shuttle represented their best hope for proving the value of human-Ulian cooperation. But with Vex's supporters in the wind and an unknown Earth fleet bearing down on them, the window of opportunity was rapidly closing. As they raced through Nexus's corridors, Darren couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but potentially the course of interstellar relations for generations to come. Darren and Horace wasted no time assembling their team and prepping the modified shuttle. They selected a mix of human and Ulian crew members, each chosen for their unique skills and unwavering commitment to cooperation. As they boarded the vessel, Darren couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in the diverse group they'd assembled. The shuttle bay doors opened, revealing the swirling, chaotic atmosphere of the gas giant below. Darren took a deep breath, his hands steady on the controls as he guided the shuttle out of Nexus and into the turbulent skies. "Initiating descent," he announced, his voice calm despite the gravity of their mission. "Horace, how are our shields holding up?" Horace's fingers danced across her console, her large eyes fixed on the readouts. "Shields are stable for now, but we're about to hit the upper atmosphere. Brace for turbulence." The shuttle shuddered violently as it plunged into the gas giant's atmosphere. Alarms blared as the vessel was buffeted by fierce winds and electromagnetic disturbances. Darren's eyebrows furrowed as he fought to keep the shuttle on course. His years of combat piloting experience put to the ultimate test. "We're picking up the radiation signature," called out Lyra, a young Ulian scientist. "It's stronger than we anticipated. We need to descend another 50 kilometers to reach optimal harvesting altitude." Darren nodded grimly. "Understood. Horace, can the shields handle it?" Horace's skin flickered with concern. Not at our current configuration. I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems and integrating some Ullian shielding techniques. It's a risk, but it's our best chance. As Horace worked furiously to reinforce their defenses, Darren guided the shuttle deeper into the maelstrom. The viewport was a blur of swirling gases and arcing energy discharges. The hull groaned under the immense pressure, but held firm thanks to the combined ingenuity of human and Ullian engineering. Back on Nexus, Captain Chen stood in the command center, her face a mask of purpose as she received the incoming transmission from Earth. Senator Blackwood's hologram flickered to life, his expression stern. Captain Chen, you are hereby ordered to surrender control of Nexus Station and all alien artifacts to the incoming task force. Failure to comply will be considered an act of treason. Chen's eyes narrowed. Senator, with all due respect, you don't understand the situation here. We're on the verge of a major breakthrough that could benefit both humanity and the Ullians. If we act rashly now, we risk destroying everything we've worked for. Blackwood's hologram sneered. Your objections are noted, Captain, but the decision has been made. The task force has authorization to use whatever means necessary to secure the station and the artifacts. I suggest you stand down and avoid any unnecessary bloodshed. As the transmission cut out, Chen turned to her second-in-command. Alert all personnel. We're initiating Protocol Omega. I won't let this station fall into the hands of warmongers. In the gas giant's atmosphere, Darren and his team had finally reached the optimal altitude. The shuttle's sensors were going haywire, overwhelmed by the intense radiation surrounding them. We're in position, Darren announced, activating the harvester now. With a low hum, the alien device came to life. Energy began to flow into the device, converted into a form so dense and stable, it defied conventional physics. The shuttle's power readings spiked off the charts. It's working, Horace exclaimed, her skin glowing with excitement. The energy output is beyond anything we could have imagined. This could power entire worlds, revolutionize space travel. The possibilities are endless. Suddenly, the shuttle lurched violently. Outside the viewport, a massive vortex had formed in the gas giant's atmosphere, centered on their position. The energy harvesting process is creating some kind of storm, Lyra shouted over the alarms. We need to get out of here before it tears us apart. Darren gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls. Hang on, everyone. This is going to be a bumpy ride. As they began their ascent, the shuttle systems surged with excess power from the alien device. They rocketed upward at an unprecedented speed, the vortex beneath them growing larger and more violent with each passing second. Bursting out of the gas giant's atmosphere, Darren and his team were met with a chilling sight. 2 fleets of ships were converging on their position, the Earth Task Force and a massive Ullian warship that had decloaked nearby. Nexus, this is Darren. We've successfully activated the device, but we've got company. A lot of company. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Copy that, Darren. The situation up here isn't much better. The Earth Task Force is demanding we hand over the station and the artifacts, and now we've got an Ullian warship to deal with. Darren's mind raced as he assessed their options. They had proof of the alien technology's true nature and incredible potential, but they were caught in the crossfire between 2 heavily armed fleets. Captain, Darren said, an idea forming, what if we could show them? Not tell them, but show them what this technology can do, something so undeniable they'd have to stop and listen. There was a pause before Chen replied. What did you have in mind, Commander? Darren looked to Horace, who nodded in understanding. We're going to create an energy barrier between the fleets. It's risky, but it might be our only chance to prevent a war. As Darren and Horace worked to modify the alien device, tension in space reached a breaking point. The Earth Task Force, ignoring Captain Chen's warnings, prepared to engage. The Ullian warship, perceiving this as an act of aggression, powered up its weapons in response. Darren's shuttle raced toward the space between the 2 fleets, carrying with it the hopes for peace and the potential for devastating conflict. Time seemed to slow as they approached the epicenter of the standoff. Now, Horace, Darren shouted. Horace activated the modified device. A brilliant, translucent barrier of pure energy erupted from the shuttle, expanding rapidly to form a shimmering wall between the opposing forces. The raw power of the alien technology was on full display, forcing both fleets to halt their advance. For a moment, there was silence across all channels. Then Captain Chen's voice rang out, broadcasting to all ships in the vicinity. To all Earth and Ulian forces, what you're witnessing is not a weapon, but a source of unlimited clean energy. This technology has the power to transform both our civilizations. I implore you, stand down and let us explore its potential together. As the energy barrier pulsed with otherworldly light, Darren and his team held their breath. The next few moments would determine the fate of human-alien relations and the future of two species on the brink of a new era of discovery or a devastating war. As Darren's shuttle approached Nexus Station, tension crackled through the air like static electricity. The Earth Task Force and Ulian warship loomed on opposite sides, weapons primed and ready. Darren's hands tightened on the controls. His eyes hardened as he focused on their last, daring plan. "Horus, are we ready?" he asked, his voice steady despite the stakes. The Ulian scientist nodded, her large eyes fixed on the modified alien device. "All systems are go. Let's hope this works." Darren took a deep breath and activated the device. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a brilliant flash, an iridescent energy barrier sprang to life around them. It expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire area in a shimmering dome that pulsed with otherworldly power. The effect was immediate and stunning. Weapons fire from both the human task force and the Ulian warship splashed harmlessly against the barrier, dissipating in showers of light. The barrage continued for several seconds before tapering off, as both sides realized the futility of their attacks. Seizing the moment of stunned silence, Darren opened a channel to all ships in the vicinity. His voice rang out clear and determined. "This is Commander Darren Walker of Nexus Station. What you're witnessing is not a weapon, but a revolutionary energy technology with the potential to transform both our civilizations." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This barrier is powered by energy harvested from the gas giant below us. It's clean, virtually limitless, and could end resource scarcity for both humans and Ulians." Horus stepped forward, her skin shimmering with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I am Horus, lead Ulian scientist on this project. Allow me to provide you with the data we've gathered." As Horus transmitted the scientific evidence supporting their claims, Darren continued his impassioned plea for cooperation. "We stand at a crossroads. We can choose conflict and mutual destruction, or we can embrace this opportunity for collaboration and progress. The choice is ours." On the bridge of the Ulian warship, Admiral Zorn watched the energy barrier with a mixture of awe and calculation. The raw power on display was undeniable, as was the potential benefit to Ulian society. After a long moment, he made his decision. "Stand down all weapons," Zorn ordered, his deep voice resonating through the ship. "Open a channel to the human vessels and Nexus Station." Meanwhile, aboard the lead ship of the Earth Task Force, Captain Reeves wrestled with her orders from Senator Blackwood and the incredible sight before her. The energy barrier defied everything she thought she knew about physics and power generation. She realized that this was a diplomatic and scientific opportunity that couldn't be squandered. "All ships, cease fire," Reeves commanded. "Let's hear them out." Back on Nexus, Captain Chen watched the unfolding events with a mix of relief and cautious optimism. She quickly seized the initiative. "This is Captain Chen of Nexus Station. I propose an immediate summit aboard Nexus to discuss the implications of this technology. Representatives from all parties are welcome to attend." Agreement came swiftly from both the Ulian warship and the Earth Task Force. Within the hour, shuttles were docking at Nexus, bringing key representatives from both fleets to join the station's staff for the historic meeting. The summit convened in Nexus's largest conference room, with Darren and Horus at the center of attention. They presented a comprehensive plan for joint human-Ulian research and development of the alien energy technology. Their proposal was meticulous, addressing concerns about equal access and potential military applications. By establishing a joint human-Ulian research consortium, Darren explained, gesturing to a holographic display. "We can ensure that this technology benefits both our species equally. We've built in safeguards to prevent any one group from monopolizing or weaponizing the technology." Horace stepped forward, her skin rippling with earnest intensity. "Our proposal includes a system of checks and balances, with oversight from both human and Ulian scientists and ethicists. This is an opportunity to build trust between our species while advancing our collective knowledge and capabilities." As discussions progressed, an incoming transmission interrupted the proceedings. Senator Blackwood's hologram flickered to life, his face a mask of barely held-back fury. "Captain Chen, I order you to seize control of this technology immediately," Blackwood demanded. "This is a matter of Earth's national security, and I will not allow—" His tirade was cut short as Captain Chen calmly produced a data chip. "Senator, perhaps you'd like to explain these files detailing your covert operations and manipulation of this entire situation, including your dealings with extremist factions among both humans and Ulians?" The color drained from Blackwood's face as Chen played a damning selection of recorded conversations and financial transactions. His hologram sputtered and vanished as he cut the connection, but the damage was done. This revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly, discrediting the hardline factions on both sides. In the ensuing discussion, more moderate voices prevailed, recognizing the need for cooperation and mutual benefit. As the summit drew to a close, a historic agreement was reached: the establishment of the Human Ulian Research Consortium, with Nexus as its headquarters. The station, once a tentative experiment in cooperation, would now become a shining beacon of interstellar collaboration. Admiral Zorn approached Darren and Horace as the other representatives filed out of the conference room. "Your actions today have averted a war and opened up possibilities beyond our imagining," he said. His usually stern face softened with respect. "The Ulian people owe you a great debt." Captain Reeves joined them, nodding in agreement. "Earth feels the same way. Your courage and vision have changed everything." She extended her hand to Darren, then to Horace, in a gesture of newfound trust and cooperation. As the excitement of the day began to subside, Darren and Horace found themselves alone in Nexus's observation dome. They stood side by side, watching the swirling energy patterns in the gas giant below, both lost in thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. Darren turned to Horace, his heart racing. "Horace, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice thick with emotion. Horace's large eyes met his, a depth of feeling evident in their alien depths. "Yes, Darren." He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "These past few months working with you, facing challenges together, it's changed me, changed how I see you. I know there are biological differences, cultural barriers, but I can't deny my feelings any longer. I care for you, Horace, deeply." Horace's skin shimmered with a kaleidoscope of colors, her own emotions intensified by their shared experiences. "Oh, Darren," she said softly, "I feel the same way. Our partnership has grown into something I never expected, but something I cherish more than I can express." Slowly, carefully, they moved closer together. Darren, remembering what he had learned about Ulian culture, gently touched his forehead to Horace's. The gesture, so intimate and meaningful for her species, sent a wave of warmth through them both. As they stood there, connected in that tender moment, the future stretched out before them, full of challenges, certainly, but also brimming with possibilities. They had not only changed the course of interstellar relations, but had found in each other a connection that transcended the boundaries of their species. The moment was interrupted by a gentle chime from the intercom. "Commander Walker, Dr. Horace," Captain Chen's voice called out, "we're ready to begin the ceremony for the official launch of the Research Consortium. Your presence is requested in the main hangar." Darren and Horace exchanged a look, both slightly flushed from their intimate moment. "Shall we?" Darren asked, offering his hand. Horace took it, her fingers intertwining with his. "Let's go shape the future," she replied with a smile. As they walked hand in hand towards the main hangar, the weight of their responsibilities and the excitement of what lay ahead filled them both with a sense of purpose. They were no longer just two individuals from different species. They were partners, pioneers, and now perhaps something even more. The hangar bay was packed with humans and Ullians alike, all gathered to witness the historic moment. As Darren and Horace took their place at the center of the makeshift stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Captain Chen stepped forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Today we stand at the dawn of a new era," she began, her eyes sweeping across the assembled crowd. "An era of cooperation, of shared discovery, and of boundless potential. The Human Ullian Research Consortium is more than just a scientific endeavor. It is a testament to what we can achieve when we set aside our differences and work together." She gestured to Darren and Horace. These two individuals embody the spirit of this consortium. Their partnership has not only unlocked the secrets of alien technology, but has shown us all what is possible when humans and aliens unite in common purpose. As Chen continued her speech, Darren glanced at Horace. The Ullian scientist stood tall and proud, her skin shimmering with subtle patterns of joy and tenacity. Darren felt a surge of affection and admiration for his partner, marveling at the journey that had brought them to this point. The ceremony proceeded with representatives from both species signing the official charter of the research consortium. As Darren and Horace stepped forward to add their signatures, a cheer went up from the crowd. The image of a human and Ullian working in harmony, standing side by side as equals, was powerful and inspiring. With the final signatures in place, Captain Chen raised her hands for silence. "Let this mark the beginning of a new chapter in our shared history," she declared. "May the Human Ullian Research Consortium lead us to discoveries beyond our wildest dreams, and to a future of peace and prosperity for all." The hangar erupted in applause and cheers. As the crowd began to disperse, Darren turned to Horace with a smile. "Ready for our next adventure?" he asked, his voice low and intimate despite the noise around them. Horace's eyes shimmered with affection and excitement. "Always," she replied, gently squeezing his hand. Together, they walked towards the exit, their joined hands a symbol of the union between their species. As they left the hangar, the sounds of celebration faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of Nexus's systems. The station that had once been a fragile experiment in cooperation now stood as a beacon of hope for the future. And at its heart, a human and an Ullian, their unlikely partnership now blossoming into something deeper, prepared to lead the way into a new age of interstellar collaboration and understanding. As they walked, Darren and Horace began to discuss their immediate plans for the research consortium. There was so much to do: establishing research priorities, organizing teams, setting up communication protocols between human and Ullian scientists. But underlying all of these practical concerns was a sense of excitement and possibility. "We should start by analyzing the energy conversion process in more detail," Horace suggested, her scientific mind already racing ahead. "If we can understand the fundamental principles, we might be able to replicate the technology without relying on the alien artifacts." Darren nodded, adding, "And we need to consider the practical applications. Energy production is just the beginning. This technology could revolutionize space travel, terraform inhospitable planets, maybe even—" He was cut off as they rounded a corner and nearly collided with Admiral Zorn and Captain Reeves, deep in their own discussion. The four of them paused, a moment of awkwardness passing between them as they realized they were no longer adversaries but colleagues in this new venture. "Commander Walker, Dr. Horace," Zorn rumbled, inclining his head respectfully. "We were just discussing the security implications of the consortium. Perhaps you'd care to join us?" Reeves nodded in agreement. "Your input would be invaluable. After all, you two are the heart of this project." Darren and Horace exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. This was why they were here, to bridge the gap between their species, to foster understanding and cooperation. "We'd be honored," Darren replied as Horace nodded her assent. As the four of them made their way to a nearby conference room, Darren felt a surge of optimism. The road ahead would not be easy, but with Horace by his side and the support of both their peoples, he believed they could overcome any obstacle. The future stretched out before them, full of challenges and opportunities. But for now, they had work to do. The next chapter of human and Ullian history was about to be written, and they were holding the pen.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.